Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. Nice to be with you all again. Welcome to the Sunday feast. So I'm going to continue reading from this book. Do you remember the journey of self-discovery? I call this Srila Prabhupada Brilliant Series. So it continues. So the name of the chapter today is The Bonafide Spiritual Master. If you remember, in one of the previous sessions, we read a conversation about show bottle spiritualists or bogus gurus, right? So this is right after that. On page 117, for those of you who have the book with you. So this is actually not a conversation, but a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave to the student body of Stockholm University in September 1973. So this must be in Sweden. So I'll highlight some key points from Srila Prabhupada's lecture. So not planning to go through every point that he has made in this lecture. I'll highlight some key points and then maybe share some thoughts and hopefully open up for some discussion. Okay. Rasraj Prabhu, are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, great. So once again, for those of you who joined just now, we are going to read from this book called The Journey of Self-Discovery, which is a compilation of Srila Prabhupada's conversations and lectures. It's a fantastic book. Just the purpose is for us to go deeper into Srila Prabhupada's books, gain a deeper appreciation, and then also really appreciate his brilliance, right? So I call this the Srila Prabhupada Brilliance series. I think we have had so far 3 or 4 sessions on this book alone. And every time we do this, it's amazing how simple, how in a very simple way Srila Prabhupada has expressed some very complex concepts, right? Once again, who can measure his brilliance? So it's a great fortune to come in contact with someone like Srila Prabhupada, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. And actually in this lecture at Stockholm University, Srila Prabhupada starts his lecture with highlighting this great fortune of the living entity. So he starts quoting this very nice verse from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Brahmanda Brahmite Khona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. Right? So the living entities are wandering throughout the universe, changing bodies transmigrating from one body to another, from one place to another, and from one planet to another. Brahmanda Brahmite, they are rotating within this material universe. This science is unknown to the modern educators. So imagine he is saying this to a university audience. That's the courage of a pure devotee. So this science is unknown to the modern educators, how the spirit soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and how he is being transferred from one planet to another. But we have explained this in our book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. And then in the very next paragraph, he jumps right into the topic, which is the bona fide spiritual master, right? So he says, in fact, the guru can help you transmigrate from this planet directly to the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha Loka, where there are innumerable spiritual planets. The topmost planet in the spiritual sky is Krishna's planet called Goloka Vrindavana. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying to give information of how one can be transferred directly to the Goloka Vrindavana planet, Krishna Loka. That is our mission. So it's kind of timely. Just yesterday, many people watched SpaceX launch another mission to the International Space Station. And so there is this tendency to move from one material position to another, just out of curiosity, out of exploration, out of necessity, or what they think is necessary. They're not happy that they've spoiled one planet already. They want to go to the next one. So whatever that agenda may be, but there is that tendency to move from one material position to another. But a guru, a spiritual master, is someone who's not interested in moving the living entity from, or helping the living entity move from one material position to another. A bona fide spiritual master is interested in moving the spiritual soul back to its home, right? Back home, back to Krishna. So that's a fundamental responsibility of a guru. And so that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that unless a guru intervenes, a pure devotee of Krishna intervenes in the life of a living entity, the living entity is going to be doing this Brahmanda Brahmite program forever, right? So rotating within the material universe. It's a very, very deep concept. Then he talks about the difference between material and spiritual world, gives them the Vedic view of different forms of life in this material world, and then highlights the importance of the human body, right? So you've been given the chance of this human body, human form of body, to make your choice. In the lower species, you're completely under the control of material nature, but when the material nature gives you a chance to get this human form of body, you can choose whatever you like. Right? So just to think about this a little bit more, remember the time was 1973, or the year, and it was a time here in the US and in the Western world in general where there was an influx of many spiritual teachers and so-called gurus, some of them authentic, some were not, but nevertheless there was quite a bit of influx at that time. And so it was crucial that people had the right understanding of who a guru was. And if you think about it, at that time, when people thought about the word guru, they understood it as someone who um, was an expert, right? Expert in a certain topic or expert in a certain area or subject matter. For example, expert in yoga or expert in meditation or things like that. But Srila Prabhupada came to give the definition that we find in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, text 34. Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. So this tattvadarshi, a guru being a tattvadarshi, is a definition that wasn't clearly brought out um, by by anyone who came before Srila Prabhupada in a very clear way. But Srila Prabhupada um, came to present that knowledge empowered by his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and gave it in a very, very clear way. And the difference was, a guru was not someone who knew some truth or was an expert in a certain area, but actually a guru is someone who knew the absolute truth, right? So that was the crucial difference between the understanding that people had before and the understanding that Srila Prabhupada gave. And it's a huge difference, right? Because in the former definition of guru, it's a very limited understanding of a guru, that he's a subject matter expert in something. But in the latter, guru is seen in connection with Krishna, who's absolute truth. Right? A guru is never alone. A guru is always with Krishna. It has to be seen with Krishna. Right? And that's one of the big faults of the show bottle spiritualists, because they present a guru or themselves as an alternate sometimes to God, or present themselves as God, or present philosophies that eliminate God from the picture, so on and so forth, so many flavors. But this idea that guru is a tattvadarshi, is someone who knows the truth, the absolute truth, which means if Krishna wants, he can be a subject matter in anything. If Krishna doesn't want, that's fine too. He's subject matter in certain areas, but he's in that unique position, right? So then Prabhupada talks about this very important concept of how the guru delivers the living entity from anxiety, right? So he introduces this concept of forest fire, the material world being compared to a forest fire, or davanala, right? Like we sing in the Mangalarti prayers, samsara dava nalali the loka. So so he explains how, just like forest fire, something that starts naturally, no one is going intentionally trying to set a forest fire. Sometimes they can, but typically forest fire phenomena happens naturally, and it just spreads like wildfire. And material world, the situation in the material world is like that. People do not want miseries, but misery happens, just like a forest fire, right? We don't want anxiety, but anxiety comes through some source or the other throughout our daily lives. Sometimes we think, oh, today is such a nice day, I've accomplished a lot, I feel happy, you know family is good, everything is good, but then suddenly something comes, right? Some source of anxiety. So that's why this material world is called samsara davanala. This allows Srila Prabhupada to introduce this another important understanding of the Guru, right? Guru is someone who delivers the mercy of Krishna to extinguish this forest fire, right? So Srila Prabhupada explains how one cannot extinguish a forest fire on one's own strength. One has to depend on mercy. And that mercy, how does it come? It comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the Guru, through the medium of the spiritual master. But Prabhupada makes an important point. He says the Guru has no mercy of his own, but he carries the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's a very important understanding. Because one should never put the Guru above Krishna in philosophical understanding and of course also in practice. One should never minimize the position of the Supreme Lord, and actually that is not pleasing to the Guru. Guru does not want to be put above God in any circumstance. So that's why Srila Prabhupada clarifies here, Guru has no mercy of his own, because there is the tendency for spiritual aspirants like us to put someone on a pedestal, sometimes even above God, right? And this happened even in Srila Prabhupada's lifetime here. Some of his disciples falsely understood that he was everything, he was above God. So that's impersonalist view, and it's also coming from platform of immaturity, but it's very dangerous. So one should always understand the Guru does not have mercy of his own, but he carries the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada says the spiritual master will never say, I'm God, I can give you mercy. No, that is not a spiritual master. That is a bogus pretender. The spiritual master will say, I am a servant of God. I brought his mercy. Please take it and be satisfied. This is the spiritual master's business. And we all know the example he gives of a mailman. Just like a mailman delivers, any mail that is directed to us. Sometimes it's a large amount of money, but it's not his own money that he's delivering, right? It's someone else's money he's carrying. So it's the notion of caretaker or carrier of mercy, right? So that's the role of the Guru. Now I want to build on this a little bit and kind of make it a little bit more applicable to us, right? Our situation, because many of us serve in the role of spiritual guide, not necessarily an initiating spiritual master, but nevertheless we often find ourselves in situations we are guiding other devotees or mentoring them, coaching them, whatever the word may be. It is important to understand that our role is to be supportive, right, of someone's journey. So how to be supportive of someone's journey in spiritual life, right? So we should carry this mood of a servant of God, servant of Guru and Krishna, that our role is not to take the position of God and direct someone from a platform of ego, from a platform of false ego. We have to be very careful, because too often we find that um, devotees, as devotees, we may be trying, maybe even sincere in trying to guide um, some other devotees who may be coming to us for guidance, but we find that sometimes we act from this platform of false ego, right? Um and how that manifests is very interesting. It manifests in very subtle ways, where we start giving very certain directions, right? Very highly precise instructions, if you will, or um, suggest some things in a very strong way so as to persuade someone or to influence them, or sometimes even brainwash them, right? uh, or overpower their own volition or free will in many cases. We have to watch out for all those manifestations of false ego, right? um, because we could be intentionally or unintentionally, we could be driving someone in a direction that they may not be willing to go, or they may not be ready to go, right? And they may not be also deciding to go, right? So sometimes we make a decision for them, and we may tell them very strongly, why don't you do this, right? So for example, um, often we find devotees giving very strong guidance about where to live, who to marry, where to send your kids to school, um, you know, which which wholesale shop to take membership from, things like that. So there's a lot of telling. We talked about this in one of the previous sessions. There's a lot of telling of what one must do versus facilitating, or asking, making people think, asking questions, right? um, so we see that also in practice and reality, that those who are more in the mood of service, humble mode of service to Guru and Krishna, they are able to guide others more effectively, it's the chances are that um, the devotee feels inspired, devotee feels, okay, I have something, uh, a recommendation or some form of mercy that I can now work with and move to take the next step. um, and then they also feel more inspired to own their own decisions in life, which is very crucial. um, Too often we find that they're being told to do something, which means it's not their decision anymore, and sometimes it can be very life changing decision. And unfortunately, we find that in some situations they're not allowed to own that decision, right? And too often what happens, um, Krishna conscious practitioners, they find that they go in a certain direction, and they flounder, they struggle, and they become upset, they become angry, and then they start blaming the source of where the decision came from. And that could be a source. That source could be that spiritual guide or a guru or anyone who has been in that position, right? So we have to be very, very careful not to um, take people in a certain direction with our own agenda, but instead listen more, instead ask more, instead inspire more, right? It's okay to make people think about different options. It's okay to give them options if they're ready to. Sometimes even that, one has to be careful. One of the techniques I've learned is that, before you give feedback to someone, ask them if they're ready to receive it, right? Too often we rush to giving feedback, right? It's actually a good practice to ask them, is it okay if I share something from my own experience, for example? And more often than not, people are receptive, especially if they're sincere, they want to progress. They're often receptive, and that allows you that opportunity to share. But then share with detachment, share with the understanding that it's between them and Krishna. It's that relationship which is ultimately most important, most sacred. And we the role of a guru or a spiritual guide is make sure that that relationship is nurtured at all times, right? So so this consciousness of I'm a servant of God, I brought this mercy or his mercy, please take it and be satisfied, that consciousness is very, very important, right? um, just to give some examples from my own experience. um, once once one devotee went to a spiritual master, and he was a brahmachari at that time. He was in early 20s. And this is interesting. Sometimes devotees also, they go to a guru for everything, right? Like every little decision, and sometimes important decisions, but they go to a guru thinking that somehow the guru will tell them what to do. So then, you know I'm not making a false decision, right? I'm not making a wrong decision. So this devotee went to a sannyasi guru and said, Guru Maharaj or Gurudev, I want to. Um, he was a brahmachari, so he said, I want to marry that Mataji. What do you think? Do I have your blessings? And the first thing the spiritual master said was, first you should stop calling her Mataji if you want to marry her. um, then he said, um, it's your choice, it's your decision, right? And if you want some opinions on some principles that you should be thinking about, I'm happy to share, but it's ultimately it's your choice, right? Another time, another devotee told me that his guru asked him to relocate, leave this job and take up another job. And he was like, guru gave the instructions, so I'm following it. So he was like feeling very good, right? But I gently challenged him. I said, is this really an instruction, or was it more a recommendation? And he said, no, 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 it's an instruction. My guru said it. He wanted me to relocate. So I spoke to the guru. So I asked him, Maharaj, I'm hearing that this devotee is taking it this way. Is that true? Is this an instruction from you? He said, no, I made a recommendation. I want him to make a decision on his own. But we talked about a few options. So, so it was very interesting to see how this devotee was taking what was actually, in this case at least, what was a recommendation, not so much, this is what you must do in life. Otherwise, Krishna is not going to appreciate your devotional service or something like that. So it's very subtle. And sometimes we make in our own minds that, it's somehow it's an instruction and I must um, see it that way. But in reality, it may be um, guru making us think. Think of different options, maybe talk to different people that you trust, consult, what is a good decision to make? The classic process, of making a good decision. Talk to family members, talk to friends, talk to senior people, senior Vaishnavas. Generally, that process is nice because at the end of the day, the devotee can make the decision, whatever that may be, right? Versus somehow imagining that this is what my guru wants me to do and going in that direction. So that can also happen sometimes, right? So just to summarize, so it can happen either way. Sometimes the spiritual guide could give something in a very strong way that it may influence someone, or the disciple or devotee may think that it is an absolute instruction, so I must definitely do it, and then take everyone along with it, right? Family members, and hey, let's go, let's pack up our bags, let's relocate, we are moving to Hawaii or somewhere, right? And if things are not understood in a proper way, it could lead to a lot of disruption to one's life, and also the lives of those who are dependent on us, right? So we have to be very careful, especially those of us who have families and with children and so on. Every decision that we take is crucial, and it's important that the decision comes from us, but it's important we take guidance, right? um, Now, in some rare cases, then the recommendation may come in the form of an instruction, right? Do this or do that, but it's very rare. It's not so common, especially in this day and age that we live in, because a lot of people we have been trained in our educational system and in our upbringing and all that to be very independent, right? And typically, we are not very prone to accepting instructions. It's not like 5,000 years ago where um, Guru may be able to say something to a disciple, like Vishwamitra Muni saying something to, in this case, of course, Lord Rama, and is immediately accepted, and that instruction executed, right? But we see, even in those times, we see in some cases instructions were hard to accept, right? In the case of Dashrath, for example, Lord Rama's father, he could not initially accept Vishwamitra Muni's instruction. It was extremely painful for him to go through that. But somehow, by Vashishta Muni's gentle persuasion, Dashratha was able to see clearly what the ask is, what is going to come out of this, and what is his role. And then he was able to, even if reluctantly, he was able to take his own decision. Right? He was able to send Lord Rama with Vishwamitra Muni. But think about it, he was able to own the decision ultimately. Right? It wasn't like Vishwamitra Muni, fought with him and somehow made him surrender, and then he took away Lord Rama. They went through that process. Vishwamitra Muni wasn't so patient, but Vashishta Muni was very patient and very gentle and persuasive and helped Dashratha make his own decision. And we see even in the Mahabharata war, Krishna actually played a supporting role. He could have annihilated everyone in 1 second, and less than a second, and could have finished the war in no time. But he played this role of a support, a mentor, a coach, and just amazing. Supreme Lord playing that kind of role is just incredible. So we have to think, if Krishna is doing that, what gives us that this false sense of delusion that somehow we can give strong directions to people? We have to be very, very careful. It's once again, it's okay to make people think, devotees think of different options, but ultimately we want to empower them to make a decision, because then they will own it, right? um, Talking about Mahabharata war, if you remember that episode, of very fascinating episode about the killing of Jayadratha. Once again, if you think about Krishna's role there, is very um, very one can say cunning, but also very supportive, right? What Krishna did was, at the time of sunset, around the time of sunset, is to trick Duryodhana, Jayadratha, and the rest of the party that the sun has somehow set. And then, when they were all little relaxed because of that, thinking that the war for that day is over, Krishna pulled the curtain and showed the sun again, and then Arjuna was able to chop off Jayadratha's head. But once again, Krishna plays a supporting role, even in circumstances like that. Right? Arjuna ultimately did what was necessary. Right? And we see that devotees feel very inspired when they feel that support from senior Vaishnavas. They want to do more because it's not coming under pressure, right? It's not like bhakti doesn't become like a pressure driven activity. It's not like being in a pressure cooker. It becomes a natural activity that every living entity wants to do. And so that's the benefit of playing this role of support. Um, so once again, going back to this comment from Srila Prabhupada, this consciousness of, I am a servant of God, I have brought His mercy, please take it and be satisfied. So the rest of the chapter, Srila Prabhupada beautifully glorifies the entire Mangalarti prayer. It's amazing. He's doing this in front of Stockholm University in a way that they can relate to it. But I just wanted to highlight these two or three critical understandings about a bona fide guru, and how we may be able to apply some of these understandings. Okay, let me stop there and see if there are any questions or comments.
Just a comment, Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada, like you said, did say that following Guru's instructions also means using your intelligence, and not just blindly following. But in certain cases, like when he told Ramakrishna Maharaj to go to China,
Right.
he gave a hard and fast instruction, and Ramakrishna Maharaj was not quite ready to go.
Right.
But I think he made it very clear that he wanted him to go, So
Right.
in that case, it's a hard and fast instruction as opposed to guidance.
Right. There's definitely room for that. Yeah, absolutely. And his mission was so critical, and you can say almost emergency, right? Because he had only so much time, and there's a lot of things that um, that can be done, should be done in such situations, and there's definitely room for that.
But then I think he has also said that following instruction does not mean not using your intelligence.
Right. Exactly. And if there is clarification needed, that's where the intelligence comes into play as well. If ideally it should be a discussion, right? And we are so fortunate that the times we live in, there is the time for having those discussions. There is accessibility. right? With the spiritual master or spiritual guide. In Srila Prabhupada's times, I can only imagine, each devotee probably got little chunks of time they had to make best use of, you know. So, and it's okay to have that discussion to clarify one's position. This is how I'm looking at it. So more having that adult to adult conversation versus, oh, I'm scared to talk more because if I ask some question about this, I may be viewed this way, that way, and 100 other ways, right? So that's all the anxieties that our mind puts forward, right? And then we go in a certain direction. So yeah, but thank you for the comment. Any other questions or comments? I'm sure there are some discussion points on this topic. I would be surprised if there aren't any.
I had actually not contemplated on that analogy that is given here. The forest fire,
Right.
whether we like it or not, it starts. I mean, I know in this day and age it is started by folks sometimes, but generally speaking, like you said, even forest fires start by themselves. To and I had heard to kind of eliminate unwanted forest vegetation that may need to be, I mean, nature, I guess, takes care of itself by causing the fire. So in that same sense, like in the material world, whether we like it or not, whatever is meant to happen is going to happen.
Right.
So it's a nice analogy that the forest fire eliminates what needs to be eliminated, just like in the material world, like you said, the wars and even pestilence and pandemics eliminate what needs to be eliminated, and it's not under anyone's control.
Right. The one thing I've heard, and I like to think about this a lot, which is it's actually a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam from Narada Muni, right? So one cannot really, I'm paraphrasing, really change one's happiness or suffering. Um, so it's actually um, we think that we can increase our happiness or decrease our suffering, but um, it's actually already uh, predetermined in some sense that the happiness and suffering that we are supposed to experience, they cannot really change. The form in which they may come may change, right?
Very good verse, Prabhuji. Yes, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, some of us have come all the way from India to the US thinking that, if I come here, my happiness will increase. But we don't realize that it's not like just because we change the location, somehow we are going to be more happy. Now, it's what in reality happens is the form of happiness or suffering just comes in different form. That's all. Right. You may protect yourself or your family in minimizing some suffering and think that I've conquered this source of suffering that was going to affect me because I made some changes here, but actually it could just come in a different form. Material nature is very difficult to understand how it works. Does it make sense? So that's why the source of anxiety is always there, whether we are here or there, right? And one of the points I discussed with the student once was, this was at MIT. I remember she was in a lot of difficult situation, and was talking about, I want to just relocate, I want to go somewhere else and be more happy. So one of the points that I shared was, just the source of the happiness or suffering is the mind. And unfortunately, when we relocate, the mind comes with us, right? So, so unless we control the mind, unless we train the mind, unless we spiritualize the mind, just physical relocation alone is not going to help a lot. Now, I'm not saying it's not a possible measure in some cases. It's definitely possible if it makes sense for someone to do that. But the principle behind that is, if the mind is not, if the mind's cancers, if the mind's um, shortcomings are not addressed, just physical steps will not help, right? So that's another thing to understand, that these forest fires are not going away. Or the suffering and happiness that we are due will come in one form or another. Any other questions or comments? I don't know if Pyari Mohan Prabhu.
Any measure that we can take, Prabhuji, because our perception changes when we have prosperity or not. So I think we need to find some ways to change our perception. We discussed this point sometime. Pyare Prabhu discusses like we need something to live a comfortable life. So I think it's related to our perception. How do we feel when we have certain level of prosperity or not, right?
How do we feel about? Can you
About
elaborate?
our different situations, like we change our situation, we change places to get more prosperous, to
Right.
to gain more happiness, but it's not true. So I believe it's about our perception, how we tackle with different situations in different situations,
Right.
right?
It's a function of the mind, right? We see in the
Yeah,
Bhagavad Gita,
yeah,
Krishna talks about sense perception and how the mind derives happiness or distress based on that.
yeah.
Um, just
So,
like, if your mind is miserable, even if someone were to throw a feast in front of you,
yeah,
you may still be miserable,
yes, yeah.
right?
So
So
if we are trained from the beginning, then it will be okay. Then it will not be a problem.
right, if we are trained in Krishna consciousness, we can see everything in
Yeah,
connection. but
exactly. Yeah,
but doesn't mean that we don't follow the inspiration. We may be inspired
yes,
to act in certain ways.
yeah, yeah,
Like we want more education, or I want to do this, I think I can serve the society better this way or that way. Those inspirations will constantly come,
yeah, yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
not like we shouldn't act on those. It's just that we need to see everything in connection.
yes, yes, yeah,
And sometimes those inspirations result in some nice fruits, right? The prosperity, in
yeah,
nice education, and so on and so forth. But still, if that connection is maintained and gratitude,
yeah,
then then it's good.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? We still have about 9 minutes. Does anyone know if we have an arati after this?
Yes, Prabhu.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yes, the altar is already on, I think.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah. Thank you. Any final comments, questions? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
Pyariman Prabhu, the stage is yours.
Really? What time
Hare
is it?
Krishna.
Oh, we still got a few minutes. But anyway, we can see how we're doing as far as the altar goes, now that I can see it better.
Oh, very nice.
That's in the way. Yeah.
Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai ki jai. Gaur Nitai ki jai.
Well, I don't know how many people are on, but I'd like to say that we plan on sending out email with some questions pertaining to what you think is a reasonable time for opening the temple, and with restrictions at first, and just get a feel of like if people think, yeah, we should do it right away, restrictions, or I don't think too many people are like that, but there might be some. So just let you know, something to think about.
Yeah, I see there are about 25 devotees, Prabhu, or 20 maybe.
But will you continue to do the Zoom
Yes.
bit? Okay, good. Okay.
I'm thinking we're going to continue the Zoom even if we are having programs.
Every
Yes.
day. We like every day Gita discussion.
Yeah, I would like to continue. Everybody who's doing it seems to like it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the general consensus, I think.
Yeah. Everybody complained that, oh, it's just too many. I mean, it's too many classes. You don't have to go to them all, just do which ones you want.
Exactly.
Although we're keeping track and we're
Attendance.
actually not, but I wish we were. Okay, I'm gonna get Jiva. Maybe we could start RT a couple of minutes early. Normally we're gonna start at 5. Anyway,
For our
say something.
engineers, is Zoom tracking how many people are attending in each session?
I don't know, maybe Rasaraj can answer some of those questions.
Yeah, that's why I said it for our software engineers, this question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I need to check if we can pull some report. I will try today.
Sure. Thank you, Prabhuji.
No one else has any comments or questions?
If you open the temple, it'll be in the Glastonbury temple, correct?
Yes. There's more room. If it's not freezing out, we can open the windows. It's pretty much like outside. We got 12 huge windows.
Yeah, they do say that indoors, if there's not good ventilation, is not a good idea.
Yeah, don't feel pressure. Just say, you can say what you feel like. For instance, Dula Krishna doesn't think we should open up till next year.
I mean, I think it's the youngsters who have to decide, because I personally don't feel comfortable to come
Right,
in.
I agree. I agree. Enough younger people who want to do it, they're going to have to do it, because I'm also, at least if it's going to be real soon, I'm not going to be going.
I don't feel comfortable till next year.
Next year for you, huh? All right. I was thinking to myself in 2025, I should be ready.
Well, I'm very happy with my daily Bhagavad Gita classes and the Zoom
Pyare Prabhu,
Aarti.
Pyare Prabhu, we like the idea of serving like outside. If you need any service, just let us know in a day in advance, so we can go take care of outside area.
Yeah, problem with yourself is you're far away. I don't want, I'll get people closer.
But it's okay. I mean, we are not moving a lot, so once in a while it's okay. I missed the notice last time.
Yeah, I guess once in a while it's okay to move.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start RT now. So you should, and we have this, who's leading?
Hare Krishna, Pyari Prabhu. This is Ankur here. I'll be leading.
You're leading?
Yes.
Is your wife there to respond?
Yeah, she will try.
We'll try.
Yeah.
Let's have your son respond with her.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible singer, Pyari Prabhu, but I'll try.
You're not gonna be graded on it.
Okay, then it's good.
Oh, let's see, do it over here. More. Let's draw a line because we have to see it.
Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maiya ki jai.
Jai,
Gaur Nitai ki
Jai.
jai.
Jai,
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Yeah.
And during the RT, the only speakers, everyone should be muted except for the kirtan and the altar here. So people can hear the conch shell, they can hear the bell, feel more, they can smell the incense.
So can you move? We can't see Jiva Mataji.
Well, she's not there yet, that's why. I'm gonna try to, I'm waiting when she gets there, then.
Kiba jaya jaya Gaura Chande Aarti ka shobha. Kiba jaya jaya Gaura
Chande, Aarti ki shobha.
Jahana vidata bane Jagaman lobha Jahana vidata
Vane, Jagman Loka.
Jahana vidata bane Jagaman lobha Jahana vidata bane Jagaman lobha Dakhine nitai chan Bame gadadhara Dakhine nitai Nikate Advaita Srini Vas Chandra Dhara
Nikate Advaita Srini,
Vas
Vasachakradhara.
Vasi Ache Gaura Chan Ratna Singhasane Vasi
Yache Gaurachan, Ratna Singhasane.
Arati Kare na Brahma Adi Deva Gane Arati बहु कोटि चंद्र जिनी वादन उज्ज्वला
बहु कोटि चन्द्रजिनी वदन उज्ज्वला
काल देशे बनमाला और झलमाला काल
देशे बनमाला ओरे झलमाला
शिवा शुक नारद प्रेम गदा गदा
शिवा सुख नारद प्रेम गद
भक्ति विनोद देखे और संपदा
भक्ति विनोद देखे और संपदा
श्रीला भक्ति विनोद देखे और संपदा
शिल भक्ति विनोद देखे और संपदा
गौरांगेरारतिक शोभा जग जन मन लोभा
गौरांगे आरतिक शोभा जग जन मन लोभा
गौरांगेरारतिक शोभा जग जन मन लोभा
गौरांगेरारतिक शोभा जग जन मन लोभा
जय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमो
विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष
शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि और भक्तवृंद जय श्री
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra
Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra
Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe
Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe
Jaya Radha Parthasati Radha Parthasati Radhe
Jaya Radha Parthasati Radha Parthasati Radhe
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe
Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe
Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe
Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe
Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe
Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman
Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasli Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Lord Nrsimha Deva Ki Jai, Shri Shalagram Shilas ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Dala Dala Dadayine Dala Dala Dadayine Hiranyakasipu Dakshaha Hiranyakasipu Dakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Yeto Yeto Yami Tato Nrsimha Yeto Yeto Yami Tato Nrsimha Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Bahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Tava Kara Kamala Varena Kamadhuta Sringa Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tana Bhrunga Keshavadruta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Tava Kara Kamala Varena Kamadhuta Sringa Kalita Hiranyakasipu Kanabhanga Keshavadruta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada नरसिंह भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गौर प्रेमानंदे
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the virtual Sunday program this evening. I'm going to share my screen. Rasraj Prabhu, I would like to share my screen now. Can you enable screen?
Yes, go ahead.
share? Okay. Thank you and welcome again, everybody, for the Sunday feast program. For the Sunday program today, we have two program sponsors for today.
Hari bol.
Hari Bol. Yuga Dharma Mataji. Yashoda Mataji got initiated last Sunday. She took the vows of initiation, and her spiritual master, His Holiness Sankarshan Das Adhikari, gave her a new name, Yuga Dharma Devi Dasi. So we offer prayers to the Lordships today as she starts her new journey. And I request everybody to loudly chant Hari Bol for Yuga Dharma Mataji. Hari Bol.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari
Bol.
Bol. We have one more family sponsoring the program today. Pratha Prabhu and Suma Thunga Mataji are also sponsoring today's program. Hari
Bol.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Our flower sponsors for today are Jagdish Shah and family.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
So continuing with the rest of the announcements, this Tuesday, June 2nd is Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi. This Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi comes once a year. And for those of who you can, it is recommended that we do a complete fast from food and water. So the ideal way to observe this Ekadashi is no food, no water.
That's gonna be hard.
The fast breaking time on Wednesday, actually there's a typo on my screen here. It shouldn't be June 6th, it should be June 3rd. Fast breaking June 3rd is 5:24 to 10:20 a.m. On June 2nd, we will also have Ekadashi Kirtan. I'm going to fix this as I talk. On Tuesday, June 2nd, we will have Ekadashi Kirtan at 6 p.m. Continuing with the announcements, next Sunday, June 7th is Panihati Chida Dahi Festival. This is the festival that was first conducted by Raghunath Das Goswami under the instructions of Nityanand Prabhu. And it was after this festival that he was able to access the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For the last 2 years, we have been celebrating this festival in a smaller setting, but it has always been highly reviewed, and there's a lot of devotees have liked this program. So this year we want to celebrate with the entire congregation. So Panihati Chida Dahi festival, I won't take too much time to explain the details, as we'll have a full program next Sunday. But traditionally, on this festival, poha, chipped rice or poha soaked in yogurt is offered to the lordships, and then it's distributed in colorful and painted pots to devotees. So this is, we will be having this at our Sunday program next week. We will have colorful painted pots which will be filled with yogurt and chipped rice, and there will be different flavors. There will be salty, there will be sweet, fruit flavored, saffron and cardamom flavored, yogurt and chipped rice. And there will be a small auction for these painted pots. So as I mentioned earlier, Raghunath Das Goswami was able to access the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after he conducted this festival under the instructions of Nityanand Prabhu. So you all can kind of just imagine that that same mercy is going to be encapsulated in small pots, and those pots will be auctioned next Sunday. There will be Aarti and Kirtan as part of our program as well. So we hope that you all will be able to join and participate in this program. On June 14th, we will have a special guest speaker, His Holiness Hridayananda Swami. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
So, His Holiness Hridayanand Maharaj, it's difficult to talk about his glories in just few minutes. He joined ISKCON in 1969, and he accepted the renounced order of life in 1970. And since then, he has traveled extensively and taken charge of many responsibilities and duties in Latin America, the US, in Europe, specifically Italy and Greece. And but amongst his, he holds a PhD degree as well, travels very extensively, but amongst one of his most notable service is the completion of Bhagavad Quran after Srila Prabhupada left this planet. So this will be, a not to be missed program, and we hope that everybody will be able to join. So as I complete the announcements, I just want to quickly recap ISKCON Connecticut's weekly programming. We have Bhagavad Gita class Monday through Saturday at 7 p.m. We have our Sunday program now at 4 p.m. There is a virtual play time or chit chat time for kids on Friday at 5 p.m. This is, more for them to connect with each other on an occasional basis, because they don't get their, the play time that they used to get at the temple. This program does not include a class, but it is structured and moderated by our two Matajis, Krishna Priya and Madhubhashni Mataji. So children won't be by themselves online. There's a school for children every Sunday at 2:45 p.m. And every Ekadashi, we have Ekadashi Kirtan. And for this week, it will be on Tuesday, June 2nd. I apologize, there was a typo on my earlier spreadsheet. The Ekadashi Kirtan is on Tuesday, June 2nd at 6 p.m. So 1 hour before we have the class, we will have the Ekadashi Kirtan on Tuesday.
Also, Mataji, every Saturday Bhagavatam class we have.
Yes, I missed that as well. Every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. we have Srimad Bhagavatam class. The program starts at 7:45 a.m. We have Shishtastakam prayers, and then we start the Srimad Bhagavatam class at 8 a.m. on Saturday. So, thank you very much, everybody, for participating in the online program today. And Rasraj Prabhu, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so you can take back the controls. We'll have chanting now for our fee sponsors. I'm going to mute myself, Rasraj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare
Very, very nice kirtan. Anybody else have something to say?
Hare Krishna, Amrita Kili Mataji, you want to say? Think.
Yeah, yes, I'm unmuted now. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for coming for the program this evening. And we hope to see you all tomorrow for the 7 p.m. Bhagavad Gita class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Devi ki.
Jai.
Gaur Nitai ki.
Jai.
Narshing Dev Prahlad Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Raj Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Rasraj Prabhu, I'll be logging off now.
Yes, Mataji. I'm
Okay,
also.
thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna all. I'm close.